Guys, hit that follow button so you know when we go live each and every single Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Like I said, no one covers the NFL better than we do here on the ActionLab Sports Channel. We will be doing live watch parties on Sunday Night Football. I didn't mention that earlier. We'll be gifting out subs. We'll be having some fun watching the games live with you, like the Manning Cast, except better. I mean, we're pretty much. I mean, if you guys have been here, you know we have a lot of fun on those Sunday Night Football. So make sure you join us for that as well. We'll do some. Let us know who your favorite teams are, so we can get you in and do a little fan face-off. We'll do all sorts of fun stuff. So, that being said, we're diving into our division preview series. We already previewed the South divisions, NFC and AFC South. So those are in the books. You probably, we got the worst out of the way first. Now we're starting to get into some interesting divisions that maybe have some more teams that you are like, all right, maybe there's some interesting things happening here, or maybe not, depending on how you look at some of these teams. But we are talking about the AFC East first. Let's dive into it, guys. First of all, I want to preface the AFC East by their odds to win the division as we sit here on the 11th of August. Currently, the Buffalo Bills and the New York Jets are they're basically even to win this division based off of FanDuel Sportsbook. Buffalo Bills slightly favored at plus 165. The New York Jets are plus 170. Miami plus 220. And the New England Patriots are plus 2,400. So obviously we know the Patriots. I mean, look at the quarterback we have here. We have Jacoby Brissett on this graphic, which is crazy to me. But
welcome back.
I mean, we know the Patriots aren't.
Crushed it the last time he was there. So
he did. By the way, New England Patriots over under. Let's talk about over unders real quick. New England Patriots over under set at 4.5. The
lower than the Panthers.
It's not a big number.
It's not a big number, but the over is minus 150. It's pretty chalky to go over for the New England Patriots. The New York Jets 9.5 is the total for the over under on the regular season. The over is minus 162 as the favorite.
I'll take the under.
The under's plus 132. Then you got the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins are set at 9.5 as well. Minus 122 for the over, plus 100 for the under. So that one's a little bit more value one way or another. So Miami Dolphins over under set at 9.5. And then you have the Buffalo Bills, who are favored to win the division just slightly. 10.5 wins is the over under for the Buffalo Bills. The over is plus 122. The under is minus 150. So under is an overwhelming favorite for 10.5 wins. People don't think they're going to get to 11. So that being said, let's dive into this division. Any thoughts on those, Scotty, for either over-under totals or division winners?
I'm a little surprised that the Bills fall into third, a slight third behind the Jets. I know the Jets have a good defense, and yes, now they're getting back the great Aaron Rodgers, who was like
maybe
42 years old. So like I don't know if it's just New York, and I'm not super high on Miami to win a Super Bowl. Miami to win a Super Bowl is not high on my list, but like. They play well, especially at the beginning of the season when they get out to a hot start because people aren't familiar or comfortable playing in Miami, and there are a lot of warm games that helps Tua a lot. They've loaded up that roster the best they can, so I'm a little surprised the Jets are betting favorites in front of the Dolphins for the division, and I'm surprised it's not closer with Buffalo. I feel like a lot of people are down on Buffalo because they lost some aspects to their roster.
Can confirm. I am.
But I still think they have by far the best player in this division, in my opinion. And no, he wasn't number one in the NFL 100. But I think he's the best player in this division.
No, keep close. The Jets are they're favorites over Miami, so they're basically
they're behind the Bills.
But it's like basically even. But the Bills are favored to win the division. So, yeah, I mean, let's go ahead and let's get the New England Patriots out of the way because they're just rebuilding. They're rebuilding. We're not going to talk a lot about them. We know that they're going to be bad. We know that they're in their post Tom Brady phase. They thought they had something with Mac Jones. That didn't pan out. Now they have Jacoby Brissett in there, which they, have a little history with. So there's a little bit of a little bit of that brewing. They were in the conversations to get Brandon Ayuk, so they were trying to make moves. So they were trying to do some things.
But they pulled out.
But they didn't exactly get what they wanted there because nobody wants to go.
Sometimes pulling out is the best option.
It's yep.
True.
It's true.
I'm sure you would know all about that.
I have 3 children. How many do you have?
Exactly. So you should know that pulling out is the best option.
What are we?
I love my 3 kids. What are you talking about? Get out of here.
Now you're banned.
Well, now you're
Not
banned.
when I was referencing it all. Mute that man.
Now you're banned.
How dare you?
Just take you off screen.
Reference my kids as a mistake on stream.
If the Patriots were rebuilding, they would have kept the Hall of Fame coach Greg Pop. Yeah.
Pop him.
Ban wreck.
Well, now you're banned.
All right. So, yeah. I mean, I don't know if I want to spend anything noteworthy on the Patriots. You guys want to talk about? They're going to finish last in this division. They are looking up at 3 teams that are much better than they are in this. So, not much else to say here.
You have a new era to start, right? The Bill Belichick era is over. That's probably the biggest storyline. Bill Belichick's been there for forever, right? You hire a former linebacker, Mayo, as head coach. As far as like additions versus subtraction, this was not a good team last year. You obviously take Drake May, quarterback, early on in the first round. We'll see what happens there, but like the roster's bad. The roster is really, really bad, and that's why I think they have the lowest win total in Vegas as far as NFL teams go. There's not a lot there. Like you look at like even who they lost, you're like, oh no, they lost these guys like Mac Jones and Ezekiel Elliott and Mike Gesicki and Trip Brown, and like there's some
Juju,
but like. Yeah, they just released Juju like a day or two ago. Falling off the map, your Steelers boy is just like.
Yeah, and I really liked him too.
Yeah, what happens to Steelers players where they're like so good and then just all of a sudden like in what should be their prime they just fall off? It's a trait.
Juju won a Super Bowl right after leaving.
It's almost
He was a key contributor to that team.
He was a part of a Super Bowl team. Mahomes.
He was a key contributor.
He was. You're right. Who'd they add? Not a lot. Like Antonio Gibson at running back to replace Zeke, which is the
non-factor.
Opposite. I like Antonio Gibson. I think he had a raw deal in Washington, but no, not a lot. I assume they're gonna start Drake May, see what they got. Took Jalen Polk, the wide receiver out of Washington, to pair up with him. But, like, this is going to be a bad team, Chris. I don't even know. Like, there's nothing to talk about outside of, like, it's the end of an era. They're starting fresh, total rebuild, and they're going to be bad this year.
Yeah.
Honestly, if the Patriots are smart, they'd have Jacoby Brissett start the year, have May sit develop this year so he doesn't die in the pocket right off the bat. Again, this offensive line is also going to be horrible. So you kind of have Brissett out there as the sacrificial lamb, get some more weapons, get a better line next year for May so he can really shine then.
I'm conflicted on I go back and forth on the start versus don't start rookie year.
Yeah.
And people point evidence to both sides. And I get if you don't have a good offensive line, why you would shy away from it. But also, like, if the dude's going to be good, he's going to be good. If he can't figure out after a rough year with a rough offensive line the first year, like, everyone like points to Mahomes and is like, he didn't start that first year and that worked out so well for him. Do we think if he didn't play that first year, he wouldn't be where he is today? Because I adamantly disagree with that. But there are some guys that may be more mid-level. But if you're great, you're great. Maybe Drake May is just not great.
I'd say there's also like the project quarterbacks. I feel like May's a little bit more of a project as opposed to like a set in stone. This guy will be good as soon as he can.
Well, and then you also have all the turmoil and turnover within like the coaching staff over the last couple seasons to get like any consistency, especially for a young quarterback. Like there's something to be said, and this will be the last thing I'll say here. There's something to be said about like the argument of players that go to bad situations, like good players in college that go to bad situations, and like what that equates. Like there are players that, you know, we look at and we're like, all right, what if this player went to a good team as opposed to like the Jets, or for instance, with what's his name, coming out, everyone was like high on
Zach Wilson.
Well, no, Zach wasn't, but before Sam Darnold, everyone was high. He was the best prospect since John Elway, so to speak, and it's like, but he went to
they weren't that high on him.
No, I mean, Colin Cowherd said it was the next John Elway. I mean, obviously,
this is why you don't listen to Cowherd.
No, I'm just saying. There's people out there that say, but I will say though, like the argument of good players going to bad teams and hurting their development, right? Like there is something about culture and players and coaching staff turnover and all these different things that, I mean, that's a factor, right? Like
100%. That is a factor.
So
that is a factor.
So
especially for like the guys that maybe aren't ever gonna be naturally great, but like in the right system, they can become a really, really good quarterback in this league. Whereas vice versa, they get in the wrong system, they could be trash. Yeah, for sure.
So, all right. Well, there you go. So, yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, that's why I say with Drake May, it's like, is he gonna be a part of that?
Is he gonna be Trubisky part 2?
Yeah. Anyway, so all right. Moving on, let's get to the New York Jets. The New York Jets have a fascinating roster, and like people are high on the Jets because we talked about the upgrade in quarterback play in
maybe.
Well, I mean,
yes, that's all we can assume. Yes.
Yeah. So we have a couple upgrades across the NFL that,
and to be clear, you're talking about their addition of Tyrod Taylor at quarterback, right?
yeah. Tyrod. But you could argue this is one of the biggest upgrades in the NFL if Rodgers can Roger. If he can be Aaron Rodgers of what we thought he was going to be last year before he tore his Achilles and everything was all in flux with the New York Jets. They were projected to be one of the best teams, and they have all these young studs, which, again, all of that is still true. They still have Breece Hall. They still have Garrett Wilson. They added a bunch of pieces, and now it's just like, all right, are we going to get a full season with a healthy Aaron Rodgers, and what is that going to look like? You mentioned Tyrod Taylor coming in as a backup, which, that'll be an option if anything gets, put on the back burner with Rodgers as a delay. But that being said, we mentioned it earlier on with their win total and with where they sit in the division standings, second and almost favored to win this division. Might be a little too much love, though, right? I mean, my take on it is the Jets are like the Mets. They always find a way to derail themselves one way or another. And there's just so much talent on this roster, though. Breece Hall finished last season on a tear. And he's going to be one of the best running backs in the NFL this year, I believe. Garrett Wilson, is going to be a baller. We talked about him on the Fantasy Focus. Like, what are your thoughts, Scott?
Yeah, if everything falls into place with this team, then yeah, they could be competitive in the AFC. But like, they're not trying to have things fall in place. They're rocking with a 40-plus-year-old quarterback, which is fine. That's what they were gonna do. They signed Mike Williams from the Chargers, who been injury prone throughout his career. You signed Tyron Smith, the left tackle from the Cowboys, who I love as a player, but like, dude's hurt every year, all the time, and only getting older. So like, yes, if everything falls into place, this roster, and then that's easy for the GM to just be like, oh well, we weren't healthy. I can't believe it. We just signed all these guys that have never been healthy, and somehow again they weren't healthy this year. We don't know what Rodgers like. Keep in mind, Rodgers last year in Green Bay wasn't that good. It's very good the year prior, granted, but the last year wasn't that good. And then we saw one series from him last year, and he's only getting older. You're right. You mentioned Garrett Wilson. Love him. Breece Hall. Love him. The defense, the secondary is really good. Quinn Williams on the inside is a monster. Yeah, Sauce is obviously one of the better corners in the league. I think he's a little overrated. I think people just like his name. But he's still very, very good. He's just not. I would never list him at 1 at corner in the league like some syndicates do. They made some weird like edges. You got Bryce Huff and Jermaine Johnson last year, and then you trade Huff and pick up Hassan Reddick, who's like stayed out of camp because he wants a contract, and it's been difficult there. But he's only older, but he's undersized. I don't know. This is like the defense is really good last year, but I think part of it was like kind of like I've talked about with teams sometimes, Chris. Like the offense didn't score, so like other teams, like the defense looked better for the Jets because other teams didn't feel like they had to put up points. If they felt like they had to like really turn it on and throw the ball and sling it around, I don't know that this Jets defense would be as good as what they're portrayed as. I don't think it's fair to start this season. Could they finish above Miami? Absolutely. Should the betting odds have them above Miami right now? Absolutely not.
And we also got to remember, Aaron Rodgers' postseason resume isn't exactly like a fantastic resume. I mean, the way he's flamed out in Green Bay and some of his recent playoff runs, the 49. I mean, one Super Bowl is wild for a guy of his caliber, and he's this old now. Like, if he wasn't able to get it done in his prime, what makes you think he's going to be able to get it done after an Achilles tear at his age? Like,
obviously it's going to be like Peyton Manning, the Peyton Manning in his final season, where the team did everything for him.
The defense carries him to a Super Bowl, and the defense is the reason why they win. Maybe, I don't know, but I mean, it's if you're a Jets fan, it's like, what's next? Because this has to be the last year, I would think, right? I mean, I don't know with Aaron.
That ego is monstrous. So
I mean,
he might think he could play for the next 5.
I mean,
also, you're talking about the injury concerns, but they shouldn't flare up, right? Like, they play on a good field, right?
They do not. They do not, Rick. That's incorrect.
Well, that's screwed.
That is incorrect. So, all right. So it seems like Vegas, and it seems like us here in the Action Lab feel like the Jets are a little overrated going into the season. They're getting too much love.
Can't confirm.
I think so. There's nothing to back up that love. Nothing. The Jets have the longest playoff drought in the NFL by far. Now, do I want them to make it this year? Yes, I do.
Yeah, no.
Yes, I do.
I know. You were rooting for it last year too. I know.
I was.
I know.
Who's
And-
number
and then
two?
Aaron
Who's
Rodgers
number
had
2,
5
Chris?
snaps.
Who has the second longest drought? Playoff drought in all the NFL.
Let's move on
What
to
team?
the Miami
What team,
Dolphins.
What team
The
has the
Dolphins.
second? No, it's not
This
the
is
Dolphins.
an
They were there
interesting
last year.
team.
Remember they
Nah.
got beat up by those Super Bowl champs?
No, it's the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, of course it is.
It's the Denver Broncos.
Of course it is.
But
Haven't been to the playoffs, then that shell of Peyton Manning got carried by that defense.
one of the great defense. Great defense.
If
Elite
they-
defense.
I will go to my grave saying that was a great defense. However, if they replayed that playoff year 100 times over, I think Denver maybe wins 3 times.
Only 100 times and they
Yes.
only win 3.
Yes. That team
Uh,
sucked offensively.
Anyways,
So bad.
we have the Miami Dolphins here, who are, as usual, a very interesting team. They
Yeah.
have the best player in the NFL.
No, that okay.
I don't know if that's quite accurate. According to NFL Top 100, it is. But Miami Dolphins. Rec, you want to lead us off on the Miami Dolphins?
Sure. I mean, well, first I gotta go pull up everyone they've brought in because I've already forgotten. Which, of course, last year they had the division in their grasp, lost in December because they can't play in the cold still as usual. So this year, I mean, they had to rebuild that
nothing.
defensive line depth, especially the edge rusher depth after everyone tore something over the season. They brought in Calais Campbell. They had draft Chop Robinson. Got a project to start, which is kind of concerning. So Calais, you got the veteran. Still pretty concerning on that front.
But they
Let's see, who else
lost
did they-
their best interior, Christian Wilkins.
They did lose Christian Wilkins.
No.
Yeah, it doesn't look like they didn't really do a whole lot on that front.
They didn't do
Yeah,
a lot.
it looks like they lost a lot. Yeah, they lost a lot more than they gained. They just gave contracts out like candy to Tua, Tyreek, and Jalen Waddle. Which essentially they're relying on the core they've already had. Granted, this is their best chance is the fact that everyone around them got worse over the offseason, so that's their best chance to take the division. I mean, then they're still a very talented team. They just have trouble gelling, especially defensively. Like this team, like their goal is to at least win a playoff game. Like if they go to the playoffs and lose in the first round, it's a failed season for them. They can't just keep spinning the wheels. They have to win one of these games and break the playoff win drought for once.
Well, yeah, and so they were last year 3rd in points per game. They also had,
What if you take out that 70-point burger against your Broncos, Chris?
Well, we
Where
like
did
to
they-
inflate
where did they
stats.
fall then?
but they still were very good offensively. Top to bottom, they were one of the best offenses. I mean, from a weapon standpoint, from what their production was, they did have an outlier of 70. But I also mentioned like Tua, like you obviously getting some money right now, getting the bag. I question whether or not giving Tua the bag is the right call, because do they even feel like he is the guy to take them to the promised land when it's all said and done? Also, too, I mean, looking at some of the other areas of this defense, Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips both recovering from end season injuries.
They were out in the playoffs. That's fair.
So, like,
That was
I don't even
when
think
was
Phillips will
going.
play this year.
But-
I don't think Phillips will play.
you
It
know,
was
so
a late Achilles tear for Phillips, so we'll see.
not that I was big on Bradley Chubb. I felt like he was kind of just like whatever. He was fine. But like, yeah, they'll be back. What they look like coming off of season-ending injuries will be an interesting thing from a defensive standpoint, because if they come back at full speed and they're pick up right where they left off, then Miami might be in a really good spot. If not, there's always that year of recovery, so I question that a little bit. Yeah, there's some interesting things going on with this Miami team. Again, I don't love the road home splits of how well they play. again, later in the season, Tua and this team, you mentioned it, Rec, doesn't play well in inclement weather, whether that's going to a cold weather, spot or even just on the road in general. I just feel like they have to have a controlled environment, and that's not always the case late in the season. So there's some things here that I'm questioning about Miami, but I still think they have a really good roster, enough to be, to your point, Scotty, second in the odds, in my opinion, in this division.
Yeah, they're very good. They're a very good regular season team, especially the first half of the year when the temperatures are warm. It'll be interesting when they get in that second half, of course. But like you talked about, they didn't have their defensive ends. I'll give them credit for that. I don't love Tua, but you still have potentially with Waddle and Tyreek the best 1-2 in the game at wide receiver, and they're paying him as such. Defensively, you still have, one of the best corners in the game in why can't I ever
Jalen
think
Ramsey.
of names? I was gonna say Jalen Ramsey. You still have him. Defensive end wise, they did take Chop Robinson at the end of the first round to go along with those guys.
They do have Odell Beckham. They
signed Odell Beckham, so Odell Beckham's on his 37th team.
Yep.
And
Maybe the Chase Claypool replacement.
Somehow there's only 32 teams, but he's been on 37 of them. I don't think that's a needle mover. Maybe he gets some balls because of all the attention that's given to the other two wideouts, but like he's not going to beat coverage at this point in his career outside. So Tua, don't love him. I'm not a big Tua supporter, and my son turns on former Chiefs games all the time in the morning, so I get to rewatch that that Chiefs Dolphins game like often because he just rewatches Chiefs games, and every time I watch Tua play in that game, it's worse. Now, granted, that was a super cold environment, but like you gotta win in the cold at some point. In if you want to make the Super Bowl, unless you get home field in Miami, and even then, I don't know if he has it. I don't think he has that dog in him. I don't think he has that dog. He just kind of seems like kind of whatever. I'll try really hard, but like I don't think he hates losing enough, Chris. Frankly,
you think he needs to have a little more fire in him?
I think he needs to hate losing more.
It's fair.
He needs to hate losing like my 7-year-old son does.
I mean,
my son should start at quarterback.
That's exactly how I felt about Russell Wilson last year. I'm like, dude, get animated, get angry once in your life. If you're pissed off, like, be pissed off, like, stop. And I think there's some truth to that with Tua. Like, let's see a little bit of a fire in that competitive nature. Like, I don't know. Maybe we'll see it this year. Who knows?
They're paying a lot of money to eventually. Well, they paid Tua, but I don't think it hits this year that hard. Obviously, Tyreek has a lot of people he's got to support in his life. So he's got to make his bag. I've heard Tyreek's unhappy with his contract already.
Oh no!
He signed like 2 years ago. Well, he just got a new one. Yeah, like how do you? Dude was the highest paid at his time. I think just above Devontae Adams that offseason.
Yeah, I think it was Devontae Adams that made him want out of Kansas City.
Correct.
So he could get his bag.
Correct. And now 2 years later, maybe. Well, no, I won't go there. But like, dude's not happy with $30 million a year. What are we doing?
And then he got another $30 million per year.
Got to pay them bills, son. Pay them bills. Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy to me.
Speaking of the Bills,
they pay him too much. Hey. Yeah, that's true, Tickle. As much as it hurts to hear, Tua was a winner at Alabama.
Well,
I mean,
there's a lot of bad quarterbacks that have won at Alabama.
Like let's be real here. Like A.J. McCarron
Mac
was an absolute
Jones
winner.
won at Alabama.
Mac Jones. Yeah. There's been some. Alabama is a wealth
It's
of.
not hard as a QB to win at Alabama.
Is
Well, it might be
Alabama's
now without Saban.
Alabama's the San Francisco 49ers of college football. They just have the best teams with.
Well, no, the only difference is San Francisco, Alabama doesn't choke when it matters most.
I mean,
San Fran didn't choke. It just ran into a juggernaut.
All right.
They choked a 10-0 lead.
So let's get.
Kyle Shanahan forgot the Bills.
Speaking of Bills, like Rex said, we got the Buffalo Bills here, finally here on this AFC East Division preview. And all right, here we go. Let's go ahead and talk about the Buffalo Bills. They are favored slightly, as mentioned, to be the top team in this. Yet I feel like everyone's down on them. So I feel like everyone. I mean, we're looking at the division odds, and there's a little bit of disrespect here, but I think a lot of people are saying, oh, they lost a lot of players. You got an old man, Von Miller. You got, a team that's lost a lot of players over the course of the last couple of years. And, now Josh Allen is kind of, what's he got left? But I think that people are overshooting how the Bills might not be as good as maybe. I mean, they got one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, behind Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, Scotty, you're high on Josh Allen as one of the best performers when it comes to using his arm, using his feet. And does he make some bad decisions? Yes, but at the same time, I feel like there's some ways that you could go and take a look at this. They have James Cook as the running back, Khalil Shakir, wide receiver, Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel, Dalton Kincaid at the tight end, who Dalton Kincaid's a nice piece on that offense. Defensively, Greg Rousseau, is still coming off the side there, off the edge. So, I mean, they still have some pieces. But are they being a little disrespected here?
I think they're disrespecting the fact that people don't understand how important quarterback play is. And Josh Allen can win. Now, Josh Allen will lose some games for you because he makes dumb mistakes at dumb times, but he will win a ton of games for you. He doesn't need Stephon Diggs is an addition by subtraction. I don't know if you saw, Chris, Stephon Diggs on the sideline of the first preseason game with CJ Stroud. He's already yelling at CJ Stroud for not throwing the ball. He's like,
it's my quarterback.
We're talking about practice.
We're talking
I'm
about
at preseason.
Not a game. Not a game.
We're talking
about practice.
We're talking about. I don't even know where.
Yeah, he lost Stephon Diggs.
We talking about practice, not a game. Not a game. We talking about practice.
Yeah. You fill in. They signed Curtis Samuel at wide receiver. You draft Keon Coleman at the end of the first round. I actually like Khalil Shakir a lot from what he did the second half of the season for him. I think, and then you have Dalton Schultz. Damn it! Now I'm saying Dalton Schultz when it's not
Dalton Kincaid.
Dalton Kincaid. Coming into his second year at the tight end spot that I think a lot of people are super, super high on. Defensively, might be a problem, Chris. Might be a problem. I mean, they dumped Tre'Davious White. They got rid of, Mike Hyde, Jordan Poyer. Like 3/4 of their starting secondary is now gone. SCG says, in Buffalo hands the Chiefs Xavier Worthy. Yeah, well, I'm not complaining. But
I'm sure you're not.
Keon Coleman, who can't separate at all. White didn't play a game last season. I don't think that's true. I think he played quite a bit for him. That's how bad their secondary is. They don't have a secondary to speak of. I think that's going to be the huge issue in Buffalo. Like, where's the secondary? You also got rid of vets like Mitch Morse at center. Shaq Lawson's out the picture. Not that these guys were great, but you got to have some depth and some pieces. They are kind of in a weird sort of rebuild, but you still have Josh Allen, who I still think is the second best quarterback in the league. So I still think he can win a lot of games maybe your roster doesn't deserve, and I think he will. I'd still pick this team, and I know they're favored. I'd still pick them to win the division. Are they the best version of themselves? No, but
they'll be competitive.
They missed their window a little bit, Chris. They missed their window. They ran into a juggernaut, and their window kind of passed a little bit. But they could always come into a new window because Josh Allen's not going anywhere, and he's the main cog in that window.
Yeah. It's the whole thing with they lose all these pieces, but then they don't really replace them with anyone. Like Christian Davis White, who was always injured, so they had to have Kyrie Elam play, who was trash. Kyrie Elam might be the starting corner again. Again, they get rid of Diggs and Davis, even though Diggs was an asshole. They get rid of those guys, and they're starting in Khalil Shakir. Like, even if he was good last year as a 3, like, you don't want a good 3 to be your top receiver.
Speaking of the Bills helping the Chiefs in the draft, and they didn't necessarily in this year, but I don't know if you go back a couple years, if you see the clip of when the Bills were about to be on the clock in the first round, and then someone traded with, I forget who the team was even, right in front of them. And they're like, oh, and there's like, they sent this clip out somehow. I'm shocked they would do it. The Bills would. Their GM's like, oh, who traded in front of them? And then it was like, ended up being the Chiefs. And the Chiefs took Trent McDuffie, who, by the way, is going to be a top 10 corner. It might be, it already is a top 10 corner in this league. Trent McDuffie is a stud. And I promise you that's who the Bills wanted. Who they take instead? Kyrie Elam.
Not panned out. He's not panned out.
He would have been cut. He would have been cut at the end of the year if they didn't need him just to have a body in the room. Yeah, just like they don't really have the depth. Like, yeah, you do have Kincaid, but like you gotta have a receiver out there. You can't just have Josh Allen throwing dimes to himself. I mean, you gotta have. Obviously, training camp is just training camp, but they're talking about how their best receiver is Chase Claypool, a guy who's not even smart enough to jump up. So you gotta have guys out there like Josh. Like I've said it before, like I feel like Josh Allen and Sean McDermott will drag this team to 9-8. Like those two will be the only reason they have a winning record this year.
I think he could drag him to 10 wins by himself. In spite of, I'm not a big Sean McDermott guy either.
I mean, yeah. So themes on this division then. Jets seem a little overhyped. The Bills seem a little underhyped. The Dolphins are maybe
I'd say a little under. I mean, they have a
I feel like this division in whole is going to be more mid than people.
I'm kind of
I
with
agree
you.
with that.
I'm kind of with you. Like this division seems like the Bills aren't gonna like overachieve by any means.
No one's
the
winning
Jets,
a Super Bowl from this division.
I would agree with that.
No shot.
I would agree with that. I think if the highest ceiling would probably be Miami, I would think.
No, I'd still take Buffalo as the highest ceiling just because quarterback play.
I think Buffalo's the highest ceiling because they can actually play in the cold.
Well, that's
I think Miami's the better regular season team.
I think
I would take Buffalo in a playoff game over Miami.
Because, like, I mean, I feel like Miami just has a lot of.
Miami also always loses to Buffalo when they play. So, even in the regular season, which is when they play because Miami doesn't make the playoffs that often.
Let's see. Getting to the chat. Rasul Douglas is awesome. Taron Johnson and Ben Folds are solid.
Rasul's fine. They're all fine, but you don't have safety play that's great there. They're all okay. None of those guys are locked down.
But like, are they going to have to start Damar Hamlin?
Oof.
Let me check real quick.
Not even.
If they have to start Hamlin, they're screwed.
Not even Tom Brady can throw the ball to himself.
The starting safeties are Taylor Rapp and Damar Hamlin.
And Taylor Rapp has never been what he was projected to be.
I mean, they have your boy Chris. They have your boy Kareem Jackson.
Kareem. Is he?
Hey. Good news. He'll take out a couple guys on the opponent side of the field.
What kind of suspension does he have coming down his?
He will injure someone else. So
if he's allowed to play.
just dive into Tyreek Hill's knees or something illegally. Or
He's currently third on the free safety depth chart.
Oh, crazy. Good old Kareem. Yeah, gotta love him. All right. Let's
as you transition, I'm gonna do a quick code yellow, Chris.
Quick code yellow, spam it in the chat. All those code yellows. Guys, again, hit that follow button if you're new to the channel. My name is Chris. That is Scott that just took the code yellow. We are your hosts for the Action Lab, your premier sports and entertainment talk show on Twitch, on the internet. We are always live talking NFL, especially now going into the NBA or NFL season. We will be covering NFL every single Wednesday and Sunday moving forward as we get into the season. So make sure you hit that follow button. We also have weekly previews of the best matchups. We have all the best betting lines and odds that we're going to be picking our best bets and sharing those with you for free live on this channel. We're also going to talk fantasy football to help you with your lineups each and every single week. So make sure you guys, again, are here and joining us in the Action Lab. Sunday Night Football is always fun. We do a live stream and watch along of Sunday Night Football. We do bingo. We gift out subs. If you don't know what that all means, you're going to have to tune in and find out. So it's a great time. We have a good time with all of you guys on Sunday nights. And then Thursday nights, we'll shift to NBA very soon. So make sure you guys are joining us on Thursday night. The MLB Power Hour will shift to the NBA Power Hour. I know everyone's hyping in the chat. STG, he's got the Joe Rogan spammed right now. It's true. I'm hyped too. I didn't think we would have this. I mean, we have contests, NFL contests for free where you can win stuff like this. Stuff like this. I mean, all the gear. All the gear is yours. Make sure you go get some gear. ActionLabSports.com is where you can find all our articles in our store and everything else. I mean, we got you guys are hyping in the chat. Are you my hype man? Hype men and women right now. You're hyping me up. I love it. Let's get it. Let's go.
This is why you gotta stream more. I get the hype.
Yeah, see? Let's go. There's the store there.